not fooling around as a Jaguars insider. There is no one that I could bring you in the world who knows more about the Jaguars than maybe Doug Peterson himself. I didn't have his number. I had Kendra's. Kendra, thank you for joining me. How you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we get to catch up after all these years, and what a perfect way to do it.
I mean, as soon as I saw the Jaguars on the schedule, I'm like, I'm definitely going to reach out to Kendra that week. It's great to see you. Thank you very much. Very interesting morning in Boston sports radio, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just want to hop right into this because you have followed this team basically your entire life, like from the day it became an expansion team. You're a gal from Jacksonville, so you've seen it all. You've seen the ups and downs. What is it about Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence that has come together to work so well and change not only the arc of Lawrence's career, but really the arc of the franchise?
Yeah, so I am what we call in Jacksonville Generation Jaguar. I was actually born at Baptist Hospital into a Jacksonville Jaguars onesie. That was the first thing ever put on my body. We're 6 months apart in age. The team started in fall of 95. I'm winter of 96. It was just the nature of suck for the last 27 years was bestowed upon me at Baptist Hospital. So no lying about the history between me and the Jags. It's probably my most abusive relationship for sure. Up until this season, it feels like things are kind of finally turning around because of Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. I think that the biggest difference obviously has to be coaching. You have the Urban Meyer stuff in our notes to get to, but what a difference Doug has made, not only in this offense, but in the development of Trevor Lawrence. And for the first time in maybe my life, I feel it's so important to note that Jacksonville Jaguars players, for the first time, want to be in Jacksonville. They want to be on this team. They've bought into the culture. Trevor Lawrence is such a leader. You remember watching him at the end of the playoff game in Kansas City last season. He stood on the field and shook every single person's hand on the way to the locker room and kind of just let that envelop him as he just doesn't want to remember again. And do I think that this team is going to win the Super Bowl this year? No. But do I think that they're going to make a lot of noise? Hell yeah, I do. I think that they're going to upset some teams. I think that they could absolutely win this game this weekend if a couple of things go right for them. So just the difference that I think you have to point to Doug Peterson over Trevor Lawrence and everything. The difference that he has made has turned this team completely around.
What is Lawrence better at this year than he was at the end of last year?
I think reading defenses, and obviously the turnover problems are still a bit of an issue with him. It's funny because if you look back at his rookie season, he led the league in interceptions with 19, and the quarterback who won the Super Bowl that year was tied with him for the most interceptions in the league. He had 19, Matt Stafford had 19. So, it's just, I think that that's something that he definitely needs to work on. If you look back to that playoff game against the Chargers last year, that was obviously the thing that kind of did them in the beginning. But the biggest difference for me this year is his ability to read the defense and having trust in his receivers. This is the, second time maybe that you can consider him to have actual weapons in his repertoire. And I think that that's huge for him. When you have a guy like Evan Ingram, who's super reliable, Christian Kirk, him and Zay Jones have such good chemistry off the field. And you can totally tell that that relates on the field. They play board games together. He comes over and hangs out with Trevor's dogs and his wife. So I think that that translates really well as well. I think that also having an offensive line that's healthy when they're able to play, this weekend's going to be the second time that their preferred starting offensive line is going to be available for the team. So I think the trust in his offensive line, his ability to read a defense a little quicker, and the game just slowing down for him, especially having these weapons. Chef's kiss for Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson this weekend.
It's going to be really interesting to see what the new defensive ends, obviously Bosa, now Chase Young, they're going to be going. It's Cam Robinson and Antoine Harris, and these guys, they're good, but this is going to be a big test. It's funny, Kendra, styles make fights. I see a lot of similar styles here. The 49ers and Jaguars are a lot alike. They're two teams that really shut down the run. You can get off on their defenses a little bit in the air. Obviously Christian McCaffrey feels like, maybe the best running back in football. Travis Etienne is like, seriously, like McCaffrey light. He is a Mr. Do Everything for this Jaguar offense, and then a very reliable tight end. And as I told you, Evan Ingram might be the most underrated, disrespected player in football. Now, he doesn't have any touchdowns, and it's hard to say, You're having a great year when you don't have any touchdowns, but he's got 51 catches. That's the same amount of catches as Devontae Adams. There's only 2 tight ends with more catches than him. So Trevor has got himself a playmaker and a safety blanket in the way that, Brock Purdy's got Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle.
I know. I really thought that, having Calvin Ridley on this offense was going to add a burst of speed and an availability downfield that they didn't really have last season. But I feel like a lot of box score watchers probably think that he's the best receiver on this team. He's helping them so much. And he really was the first week, but he's declined so much since then. And I think the biggest difference this weekend is going to be who can disrupt the quarterback quickly and the most often. I think that Brock Purdy is obviously the steal of his draft, right? You guys are getting away with having such a cheap roster because of the fact that
murder.
Exactly.
It's murder.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I remember being out there and the 49ers kind of being great, but not kind of playing up to their potential at the time. But man, have you guys lucked out. This is going to be such a game. And after both teams coming off of bye weeks, people are going to be healthy. The biggest difference for me is going to be who can rush the quarterback better and who can get the run game going quickly. I think whoever scores first is who's going to win.
There you go. Strike early. I'll tell you, when the 49ers do strike early, they're on a good path. They're front runners, which is always used a little bit as a negative term. To me, there's nothing wrong with front running if you get leads and you sit on them and you win games. That's a good thing. Coming from behind, though, it's been a difficulty for Kyle Shanahan, especially 8 points down in the fourth quarter. He's 0 for 37. So you're going to want to avoid that at the very, very least. Kendra, tell me about the Jaguars defense. Obviously, you've got a tackling machine. A guy's just at the top of the NFL and tackles all the time in Olakun and Kunin. I always screw his name up. I always do. Aluakon. There it is. And the first name is not any easier either. But I mean, look, they've got Josh Allen. They've got Devin Lloyd. This is a team that is, definitely a bend don't break defense. Very stingy against the run.
Yeah, I think that the defense has definitely played up to their opponents at times. They were obviously the question mark for me going into the season. I never thought that the offense would be sort of what I'm looking at to improve. I think the biggest thing that needs to come out of the defense this week is Devin Lloyd's got to be on the sack sheet, and I need Trayvon Walker to make a big jump. Them not taking Aiden Hutchinson last year has been such an L for this organization so far. I'm not saying that Trayvon Walker is not going to make that jump in a third year or later on this season or what have you, but Aiden Hutchinson was day one, snap one, ready to go. Trayvon had a higher ceiling and needs a little bit more work, but I just need to see him be more consistently on the stat sheet through all of this. But I think the biggest question mark for the Jags this weekend is Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco being healthy. Andre Cisco is kind of a turnover machine if you give him the availability to. And he's been injured, which has been obviously an issue. But last season also, Rayshawn Jenkins was kind of one of those safeties that could give you a game-changing play. The turnover battle this weekend, I think, is also going to be something to watch. Like I said earlier, Trevor Lawrence has some turnover issues. I think he only has 4 interceptions, but a bunch of fumbles. So if that pass rush can disrupt him and cause him to fumble the ball, that's going to be obviously the huge difference maker. But Foye Oluokun is just one of the smartest guys in the game right now. He actually graduated from Yale, has a master's, just brilliant player, has definitely taken that jump this season. But as far as the defense goes, I need the pass rushers on the stat sheet this week. Biggest difference maker is disrupting Brock Purdy, and that's all there is to it. I mean, this defense has impressed me so far this season. I just need them to not get shaky at this point in the year.
Juszczyk went to Harvard, obviously, so we could have some Ivy League on Ivy League crime right there at the line of scrimmage. You are flying into Duval to go to the game this weekend. It really is. It's the biggest game, I think, in the NFL this weekend. You got 2 teams.
I can't believe it didn't get flexed.
I know. I are we at that point in the year where you can pull a team? And yeah, it should have been. I would also see why CBS would hold on to this with their cold dead hands. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a game that you want to give up in an otherwise unsexy slate of games. This is a big one. And I really do think that it's a fork in the road for both of these teams. Like, where you end up at the end of the year, like, we can almost start counting the wins and losses from this point on to find out who you're going to be. What is the biggest misconception about Jaguar fans? I mean, it's, for a while, the pool in the end zone was all we really knew about the stadium and the franchise. It feels like they have gone from untrustworthy, kind of goofy, the Urban Meyer thing, which I'd love to get your opinion on. But why have they turned the corner? Is it Peterson? Is it Trent Baalke, who I think deserves a little credit here for building a really good team?
I think the biggest misconception is something that you kind of joked about earlier, is that the Jags have no fans. I think that's the biggest misconception out there. Jags Twitter is one of the craziest places I've ever been. I wasn't on Twitter really. I had a Twitter account, but I had maybe 15 tweets and 100 followers before 2021, and I finally dove into Jags Twitter. A lot of fans, passionate fans, they're all over the place, and they will eat you alive. So truly do not mess with them on Twitter. I've seen them drag famous people and get people canceled. I'm so serious. They have nothing to lose and they don't care. But I think that the biggest turning point in all of this was something that at the time I kind of saw as hurtful and potentially bad as far as losing fans. But when they thought about bringing in Byron Leftwich to replace Urban Meyer, I was really upset when that ship kind of turned rather quickly. And it turns out that that was the best thing for the Jaguars. I think it's absolutely coaching. The Trent Baalke thing, I think, is a good point, but he hasn't drafted well enough for me to give him those props. I look back at some of the earlier drafts that he handled and all of the losers that came out of those drafts. I mean, I look at freaking where they took Laviska Shenault, and it makes me want to throw up. And even the Trayvon Walker thing, it was signed, sealed, delivered to us with Aiden Hutchinson, which, he got the best option out of the available ones for him, living at home, playing for his childhood favorite team, all of those things. So I'm not really ready to give Trent Baalke his flowers, but I will say after the trade deadline and that Ezra Cleveland trade, I was like, all right, let Trent cook, let him cook a little bit, but it's gotta be Doug for me. When you bring in kind of a quarterback whisperer who won a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles to coach up Trevor Lawrence after the disaster of a season that he had his first year, I don't think that there's any other option you have but to give Doug his flowers.
As I was telling you before we even went on the air, I really want to give you some flowers because it's really cool to meet someone at the dawn of their career. And that's when I met you back in 2016 when you were interning. And I honestly, I don't know how you got out to the Bay Area with some family or something that you had. And you're an intern at the station. You're working with Papa and Lund more than you're working with my show. But we spend a couple days together outside of the Shark Tank when the Sharks were in the Stanley Cup Finals. And let me just say, I'm on the air, I'm interviewing someone doing something, and I start coughing. I start something, and you just immediately hand me your water. I take a sip, I finish the interview, we go to break. I turn to you and I said, holy shit, what is in this water? I've never had a sip of water better than that in my life. And I've still got the container that you gave me. Because of Kendra, I know what spa water is. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that into my life.
I still have that photo. I think I tweeted it to you maybe a year or two ago now. But my mom loves that picture. That's one of my fondest memories as an intern. I remember the guys giving me so much crap at the time because I was always bringing in like what they considered to be hippie bullshit, which when you live in San Francisco, to be called like the person bringing in hippie bullshit is kind of hilarious. But I was bringing in my spa water and my homemade protein bites and all that stuff. And you know what? My spa water saved the day at one point, and that's all that matters to me. But I am so glad that we have stayed friends through all the years.
It is so cool to watch someone say, this is what I want to do. And then I'm now watching you do it. Like I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. There is absolutely no doubt that you are on the launching pad of a career that's going to go a lot of places further than just like local Boston radio. There's no doubt in my mind. And beyond all that, what I think is the best part of you is your sense of humor, and you're a hysterical Twitter follow, and you swat at people like people swat flies away. It's good stuff.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us. I feel like we know more about the Jaguars than we knew before. It is great to have you on today. I wish you the very best. And look, there's not a lot of 49er Jaguars matchups, but we'll figure out a way. Maybe when there's something popping off in Boston again, I'd love to have you back. Kendra, thanks so much for joining us today, and best of luck to you. Good luck going forward. And this is a monster football game this weekend.
I appreciate it. I'll be texting you for sure. And if you're watching the game, I will be in a leopard print onesie dressed like a cat. Look for me. I'm going to try and make it on the TV.
There you go. Leopard print onesie. Keep an eye out, everyone. Kendra Middleton, no joking around. Seriously, fantastic follow. Follow her on Twitter, Instagram, all the places. And tip of the cap to the smooth morning radio happening in Boston.
Thank you. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
There she is. Kendra Middleton. Cool as hell. I'm going to take the headphones off. Don't need those anymore. But seriously, it's awesome to see someone tell you at a very young age, this is what I want to do. And then you see them doing it.